We are all probably familiar with the famous song, What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong released this song in 1967, which was a time of kind of chaos and unrest. Political unrest in the United States, civil unrest. It was the time of the Vietnam War. And as a counterpoint, kind of a different perspective throughout this darkness and difficulties, Louis Armstrong released this song, which talks about consciously searching for the good that is in the world. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. This song from Louis Armstrong is not naive optimism. It isn't looking at the world and ignoring difficulties. This song represents a choice. Choosing to look out and to see the good, choosing to look out and to see our blessings. This theme of gratitude, of course, is something we are called to consider on this Thanksgiving long weekend. The importance of gratitude. The importance of gratitude comes across as well in the gospel, where Jesus heals 10 lepers, but one returns to give thanks, and that somehow makes all the difference for that one leper. Thanksgiving, even in a non-religious kind of context, is seen as something important. Thanksgiving, being gratitude or showing gratitude, is something like a life hack. People talk about it. If you want to live a more positive, a better life, a more joyful life, you need to count your blessings. You need to show gratitude. And this has gone on for a long time, where people recognize the importance of gratitude. For example, the Roman writer Seneca spoke about the importance of gratitude. He said, "Nothing is more noble than a grateful heart." So he saw that being grateful, showing gratitude, looking at our life and seeing what was good and recognizing it was a noble and important thing to do. More recently, some of you might be familiar with the work of the psychologist Brené Brown. Writes in a very powerful way about how we can live a more healthy life. And she wrote the following about gratitude. She wrote, "I don't have to chase extraordinary moments to find happiness. It's right in front of me if I'm paying attention and practicing gratitude." Brené Brown then describes how gratitude, again, is an important way that we can experience happiness and joy in the midst of difficulties and struggles. In the gospel today, we see that Jesus shows us the spiritual importance of gratitude. Whenever I hear this story about the 10 lepers that were healed, it strikes me that there are two healings going on here. On the one hand, there is the physical healing that all 10 lepers experienced. They were cleansed of their leprosy, and this made, of course, an enormous difference in their life. This was a physical healing that really changed them dramatically. At the same time, Jesus, in telling this story, wants to highlight the importance of being thankful. And he does this, as Jesus often does, by pointing out that it is a Samaritan who does the right thing. Of course, Samaritans for some Jews were looked down upon. So when Jesus holds up a Samaritan as an example, he's saying, look, even those who you might see as outcasts or not part of your religious community are living better than we can at times. We see then that Jesus praises the Samaritan for being grateful, for coming to give thanks. And Jesus says to him, we're not 10 healed. So it seems to me then that this one who returned somehow was healed in another way, healed spiritually. The Samaritan gave thanks. The Samaritan recognized that what he received from Christ was a pure gift. This idea of recognizing that what we have in our life is a grace, not something we earn or maybe deserve, but something that is a gift, helps us to live with greater joy, optimism, and peace in our lives. Showing gratitude to God, making the conscious decision to see what is good in our life, seeing what is good in ourselves, good in others, good in different circumstances, leads, it seems, to spiritual healing. It helps us recognize that in the end, all is grace. It helps us to see in a tangible way, when we see our blessings, that God truly is loving, that God cares for us, It helps us make it not simply something intellectual to say that God loves us or that God is a father. When we recognize and look at our blessings and give thanks to God for those blessings, we really experience through that gratitude the love of God in their life. So I'd like to, in light of this, have a little exercise, if you would allow me. I would like to have just a moment of silence, if I can unlock my phone and get my timer working. I'd like to have a moment of silence to try to consider in our life blessings. So, there we go. I got it to work. I remembered my password. That's good news. So I'd like to take 1 minute now in silence, and I'd like us to consider two things we're grateful for. I'd like us to consider something in our life, maybe a person, experience that we're having, or something we're going through that we're grateful for. And as well, I'd like us to consider a second thing we're grateful for, more with respect to our faith. What is something we're grateful for about our faith or maybe our parish community? Let's start this minute and reflection now. Great, we can come back. Thank you all. You all did very well. Taking that time to be grateful, of course, is a choice, as Louis Armstrong points to in his song, and it's not something that's easy. It's a spiritual practice to actually search for what is good. Can be easy, I think, at least it is for me, to see what's negative in my day, in myself, in circumstances, or other people. But it's a choice to search for that good. And when we see that good and live with gratitude, we can more truly believe that Jesus is with us, caring for us. Of course, as Christians, we not merely want to show gratitude. We want to take another step. We not merely want to see the good in our life and be thankful, but we also want to be those people that others who encounter us are thankful for. We want to be the kind of people who act in a way with such kindness and service that others are grateful to have us in their life. We want to be those people who reach out, for example, to a friend who might be struggling. We want to be the sort of person who picks up the phone and calls an elderly or sick relative. We want to be the sort of person who is able to reach out maybe to a young person who is confused and struggling and to encourage them. We want to be people of gratitude, to see the blessings in our life, but also to be people that others are thankful to be around. We celebrate here the Eucharist, which of course is Greek for thanksgiving. When we celebrate the Eucharist, we want to be transformed into people of thanksgiving. When we celebrate the Eucharist, we want more and more to be people who see the good in our life, to recognize that it is a wonderful world because God has made it and Jesus is with us. At the same time, through the Eucharist, we want to be transformed to be people that others are grateful and thankful for. We want to be the sort of people in others' lives to make their lives a wonderful world, especially for those who struggle.